Hello and welcome. My name is Vineet Malhotra and you're watching NewsX World. Let us take a look at the top stories of today. Well, Iranian media says that 4 Revolutionary Guard fighters were killed and 3 injured in an Israeli strike on a training camp in Tabriz. The city in northwest Iran has been targeted repeatedly since Israel strikes began over a week ago. Home Minister of India Amit Shah says that India won't rejoin the Indus Treaty. Water flowing to Pakistan will be used domestically, and after a terror attack in Kashmir, Delhi says that there is no reason to uphold a deal that helps Pakistan while putting Indians at risk. President Putin suggests Russia troops could advance in Sumy, calling all of Ukraine ours in comments about a border buffer zone. Ukraine's foreign minister slams the remarks as proof Moscow isn't interested in peace, only more land and bloodshed. European ministers met Iran's deputy foreign minister in Geneva, pushing Tehran to engage with the US on its nuclear program. But Iran refuses talks while Israeli strikes go on, with Trump set to decide on possible US action within 2 weeks. A female suicide bomber killed at least 20 anti-jihadist fighters in Borno state in an attack blamed on Boko Haram. Militia leaders have told the AFP. The blast struck near a fish market in Konduga late Friday night, leaving several injured. A senior Futhai official has said that Prime Minister Petongan Shinawatra will neither resign nor dissolve parliament amidst a deepening political crisis. The statement comes as criticism mounts over her handling of a border dispute with Cambodia. Pakistan says it will nominate President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize for helping defuse tensions with India. Analysts say the move could sway Trump away from backing Israeli strikes on Iran, which Pakistan strongly condemns. Japan scraps its annual defense meeting with the US after the Trump administration demands Tokyo boost military spending, the Financial Times reported. Secretary Marco Rubio and Pete Hegseth were set to host Japan's foreign and defense ministers on the 1st of July. Alright, starting with the top story, the war between Israel and Iran continues to intensify, now entering its second week with the mounting casualties and targeted nuclear strikes. Overnight, Israeli fighter jets killed 3 senior Iranian commanders. Among them, Saeed Azadi, the head of the Quds Force Palestine Corps and a top coordinator with Hamas. Israel says Azadi was struck near Qom alongside commanders Behnam Shahriari and Aminpur Jodaki. Here's what Efi Defrin, Israel's army spokesman, had to say.
במהלך הלילה מטוסי קרב של חיל האוויר חיסלו בהכוונה מדויקת של אגף המודיעין את סעיד איזדי, ראש גיס פלסטין בכוח קודס. חיסלנו אותו בעת שהתחבא בדירת מסתור בעיר קום בלב איראן. במסגרת תפקידו הוא היה אמון על התאום הצבאי בין המשטר האיראני לבין חמאס בלבנון ובעזה.
Well, at the same time, Israeli jets launched a second wave of airstrikes on Iran's Isfahan nuclear facility. The target, 2 centrifuge production sites. Israel claims the strikes dealt a severe blow to Iran's nuclear program, and officials say it has pushed back Iran's nuclear bomb capabilities by 2 to 3 years. Iran's response has been swift. Police in Qom say that 22 people linked to Israeli spy networks have been arrested since June 13th. A European national is also in custody for alleged espionage, though their identity remains unknown. Iran human rights say that at least 223 people have been detained nationwide over suspected Israeli links, and the real number they want could be much higher. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi is in Istanbul for emergency talks with 40 Muslim nations. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation is meeting to discuss Israel's deepening offensive. Back in Israel, Armed Forces Chief Eyal Zamir is warning citizens to prepare for a prolonged campaign. He says this is the most complex military operation in Israel's history. And as Iranian missiles continue targeting Israeli cities, the region braces for what could be a long, grinding war. Ross Feingold, a political analyst with us on the broadcast at this point in time. He's joining us all the way from Taipei. Ross, great to have you here once again. Well, the war is escalating at this point in time. There doesn't seem to be any holding back. No punches are being pulled. But at the same time, there is also a conversation taking place that Iran may slow down or it may enter that non-proliferation zone. But the question I want to ask you, Ross, they've been having these conversations in the past as well, and still uranium enrichment continued. How can we trust Iran again?
It's very difficult to trust Iran. They've clearly improved their ability to enrich uranium up to the necessary level for weapons. Even if they actually haven't done that yet, we know that they could do it within a short period of time. They've hidden many of their nuclear facilities from the IAEA, which was confirmed in the recent IAEA report. So they really can't be trusted, and that's one of the reasons why Israel decided to take the action that it did. They were facing an existential threat from a regime that rejects transparency, that insists on enriching uranium beyond levels necessary for a civilian nuclear power program. And again, Israel made the decision that it couldn't wait any longer.
Ross, what do you make of American involvement in this conflict so far? Donald Trump is obviously dabbling with a lot of scenarios at this point in time. By the way, he's also gunning for a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize. That's why he invited the Pakistani dictator Asim Munir to support him. With all these distractions and this convoluted approach within the Muslim Ummah, do you think that this war is going to be over soon?
Well, as Israeli officials have been saying, it doesn't look like it'll be over soon. It could end quickly if Iran would accept the very generous offer that was put on the table by United States negotiators, which was that uranium would be enriched outside of Iran and provided to Iran for civilian nuclear power purposes. For reasons known only to the Iranian leadership, they rejected that deal. And keep in mind that that deal wouldn't have just made it unlikely that Israel would attack, but it also would have offered Iran enormous relief from the sanctions that have been imposed on it. It really would have allowed Iran to rejoin at a significant level the community of nations. It would have allowed Iran to do business with a lot of countries. Foreign investment would have flowed in. So again, the decision making, however peculiar it is, it's in the hands and the minds of the Iranian leadership. As far as President Trump's decision making goes, obviously, whether or not to join Israel and to bomb Fordo using the so-called bunker buster bomb. This is known only to President Trump. It's a decision up to him to make, although he may or may not try to get congressional authorization as well. We know President Trump is reluctant to use military power overseas. That was one lesson we learned from his first term. But if he just has to dispatch a couple of aircraft with bombs, he might be willing to do that in this situation, even at the risk of the Nobel Peace Prize that he's wanted so badly.
Ross Feingold, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. Moving on, US President Donald Trump took credit on Friday for a peace deal negotiated in Washington between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda, and complained that he would not get a Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts. The warring African nations said in a joint statement on Wednesday that they had initiated an agreement aimed at ending the conflict in eastern DRC to be formally signed in the US capital next week. The resource-rich eastern DRC, which borders Rwanda, has been plagued by violence for 3 decades now, with a resurgence since the anti-government M23 armed group went on a renewed offensive at the end of 2021. The deal, which builds on a declaration of principles signed in April, was reached during 3 days of talks between the neighbors in Washington, and according to their statement, this has been confirmed. Maurice Carney, Executive Director of Friends of Congo, is joining us on the program to talk more about this. Maurice, appreciate you joining us. While it's a good thing that the conflict between these two great nations is coming to an end, but do you think Donald Trump should be taking credit for it? Because for as long as I know, there has been war. There has also been an initiative to strike peace. Do you think Donald Trump can just come in and say that I'm the one who got this done?
Whether I think he can or not, Donald Trump, that's what he's going to do. As you're absolutely right. The African Union has led an initiative called the Rwanda Accords. East African community has an initiative. Qatar has been involved in an initiative as well. The Southern African Development Community. There's been a host of initiatives over the years. Interestingly enough, this last initiative being shepherded by the United States is not fundamentally different from the previous ones in the sense that it really doesn't get to the core of the matter and take into consideration the concerns of local communities. Really, the U.S. interests in this effort is around the access to critical minerals, competing with China, getting U.S. businesses in to secure mineral rights. For example, Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos and Michael Bloomberg, they're invested in a company called Cobalt Metals, and they're going to be getting access to lithium in the southeast of the Congo. So it's really more about the economic interests of the U.S. and bringing about peace in the east of the Congo.
And Maurice, obviously this piece is absolutely important. Number of leaders, including Donald Trump, have gone on to say that this is not the age of war. But what do these countries need to do at this point in time to make sure that they don't get into this warlike mode again?
Well, it's kind of interesting because there's so much bounty in the Congo that the countries in the region, like Congo is bordered by 9 other African countries. No other country on the African continent has that many countries bordering it. But you have certain leaders like Paul Kagame of Rwanda and Yoweri Museveni of Uganda. They're primarily concerned about their personal interests rather than the interests of the continent as a whole. I think the more you see African leaders, like you see in West Africa, you see Niger and Mali, Burkina Faso coming together. It's that type of leadership that's needed on the continent that can, mitigate efforts or mitigate, wars that we see unfolding on the continent. So it's a question of leadership, and in large part, that leadership, new leadership that we see coming about, is driven by the population. The population see there's so much wealth on the African continent, and they want to start benefiting from it. So I think we're going to see the efforts that are unfolding in West Africa catch on to the rest of the continent, which will have an impact on the conflicts in different parts, different hotspots there.
Maurice, always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much. All right, moving on. In the ever-growing tensions between India and Pakistan, India has now ruled out any restoration of the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan. Speaking to the Times of India, Home Minister Amit Shah confirmed that New Delhi will now redirect river water meant for Pakistan to its own territory. He also said that the water flowing to Pakistan will be diverted to Rajasthan through new canal projects. He described Pakistan's access to the rivers as unjustified. India suspended its participation in the 1960 treaty after a deadly attack in Kashmir killed 26 civilians. Delhi blamed the attack on Pakistani-backed terror groups, an accusation Islamabad strongly denies. The treaty has remained dormant despite a ceasefire agreement last month, marking a pause in one of the worst cross-border clashes in years. Pakistan has maintained that the treaty cannot be unilaterally suspended. It has warned that blocking water flow would be seen as an act of war. Islamabad is now exploring a possible legal challenge under international law, and meanwhile India says it will continue to increase water withdrawal from the Indus system as part of what it calls retaliatory action. Joining us on the program at this point in time is Mr. Sumit Peer, senior political commentator. He's with us from New Delhi. Sumit, if Pakistan has warned India that any abeyance of the Indus Water Treaty is going to be an act of war, where is the war? One war or a short-term war has already been concluded. Do you think Pakistan is perhaps biting more than it can chew?
Vinny, thank you very much for having me on your show. Well, Pakistan is a country which lives on rhetoric and which dies with illusions and perceptions. They live in a perpetual state of hallucinations. Mirage are a reality in Pakistan, and delusioned people with disgruntled leaders and a military imposed government is what Pakistan is about. Look, blood and water cannot flow together. It's very clear. All these treaties, Vineet, are peacetime treaties. If you're my friend, I let my water flow with you. If you're spilling my blood, I can't let my water go into your country. That is very sure India's position is there. Now, Pakistan, if you want to have a war, if you want to go to International Court of Justice, you can go to wherever you want. The history remains that you have fought 5 wars with us and you have lost all the wars. You have been decimated, your economy is in shambles, you don't have even money to pay your interest. You are living on the elms of China and the Islamic world. You don't have food for your people. You don't have petrol for your people. You don't have medicines for your people. You are a country which is in shambles. And this perpetual hatred for India and the Hindu community is driving this country to the state where the country will not exist, we need. Water is the most important element. If you kind of mess with the water, which I would say, I don't even mind saying, we weaponize the water, let it be. I'll be very candid, we weaponize the water. Without water, you can live for 7 days. Without food, you might live for 30 days. Now, what is happening in Pakistan? I'll give you a couple of examples. First of all, the Kharif crop, which has to be sowed in May, is almost going to fail this year in Pakistan. 80% chance it will fail. So you'll have famines. Well, when we reduce the water flow into Pakistan, the hydropower generation is hit by 40%. Their main 2 dams, Tarbela and there's one more, Tarbela and Mangla, the waters are down by 50%. So you have hydropower not generated, you have drinking water problems, you're going to have irrigation problems. And with Pakistan's irrigation structure, which was done in 1965, and trust me, after that, they have not moved a brick after that. The country is in shambles. The country is looking into a crisis which military or any political system cannot handle. But as long as they are driven by these radicalized ideas or decimation of our country and that perennial hate for Hindus in India, this is the price the unfortunate people of the country have to pay. If anybody has to be blamed, it is the Mullah Munir, who's allegedly the so-called chief of the failed field marshal of Pakistan, where the government is a puppet, where prime ministers come and go, where elected prime minister is in a jail, and second prime minister is on his mercy. That is what the tyranny of Pakistan is. If the Pakistan is in shambles, it's not because of us, it's because of their own deeds. And Indus Water Treaty is something which is going to be the euthanasia for the people of Pakistan, because I see this government being dismantled. I see Pakistan breaking up into parts, and let's hope after that we need the sense prevails, the good sense prevails, and the people who come into the power, they are bothered about making their own countries. I believe they will break into 4 countries, making their respective countries prosper and forget this perennial habit and perennial state of jihad where they are always trying to kill or get killed. So in this world, I think we all want to live and breathe, because you and me and billions of people in this world don't believe in life after that, don't believe there's a heaven up there and there are 72 versions. As long as we don't believe that, we're still very happy with this earth, and let that where the human.
And Sumit, would this also explain the outreach that the Pakistani general Asim Munir has been conducting? He met Donald Trump, and there's a possibility that he's going to go around the world seeking support against India as well. Do you think the Indus Water Treaty is the reason for that?
Vineet, I think if you talk of recent meeting with failed field marshal, I called him failed field marshal, with the Trump, is because, look, Trump wants cheap mercenaries for Iran. Trump wants Pakistan to close their airspace, which they did. Trump wants them to close their borders, which they did. Trump wants to stop supply of goods to and from Iran, which they did. Trump wants them to give his intel access to the Iran, which they did. Trump wants them not to help in Iran in any way, which they did. Trump wants them to make sure Pakistani military or Pakistan's ISI doesn't meddle with Iran when they're going to settle it. So, and he might need a couple of 100 people to die in that. So he is the cheapest private military contractor wearing a uniform in the world. He wears these 2 hats. So he can be wearing the field of uniform of general, and on the other side, he might be the cheapest military contractor, where he can provide you with 2 kinds of people. One is the Pakistani army, wherein the body bags are not counted, even with these so-called non-state actors like Jaish-e-Adal and all, who are very active in that part of the region, are controlled by ISI. So he can give Americans that support. And as long as America gets that kind of support in peanuts, literally peanuts, Americans don't mind it. I mean, a bunker buster, if you look at a GPU-57, it costs $500 million, and still you're not sure with the outcome. And if you spend $500 million in Pakistan, swear to God, you can have the generals polishing your boots. I mean, that's the reality of Pakistan. I'm being candid here. This is how Pakistan looks. So Trump, as a businessman, is looking for what helps him, what is the best deal at the cheapest price. So you might have to have a cup coffee with unelected and unelectable dictator of Pakistan, that is Asim Munir. That's the sad side of it. But look at the American hypocrisy. You had good Taliban, you had bad Taliban. You cut a deal with Taliban, then you had a fiasco in Afghanistan. You're cutting a deal with Mullah Munir, you will have problems again. You have tried to do same deals with Iran, but nothing of these kind works. But let Americans try. Americans feel and believe they can always cut deals. They can always make the world go round. But it doesn't work with
All right.
a particular mindset. You know what I'm meaning.
Absolutely right, Sumit. Appreciate you taking out the time and speaking to us. Always a pleasure having you. Well, that's all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news and updates from around the world. Thank you for watching.